When dealing with social enterprise, one of the common questions we get asked is, are you a social first or a financial first organisation? This implies that you need to compromise on one of those aspects of the business in order to be able to deliver. Bessi, talk to me a little bit about compromising your mission in a social enterprise, and what do you do to help organisations not have to do that?
Sure. I think if you actually engage in the way that we do around looking at the business model canvas itself as a bit of an entry-level play to avoid that compromise, it's not necessary to compromise on the social side, and yet for most people they don't actually do that. So they say, well, I'm doing this wonderful thing in the world which no one will pay for, or which has a beneficiary group that can't afford to pay for. And so they don't try to figure out a business model that will support that. If that's the way you engage and you end up trying to then say, well, we've got to do it in a financially sustainable way, you're going to have to drop that mission because it's not actually sustainable. So for us, it's looking at things like scale and sustainability help actually take you into a place where not only can you have that social impact, but you potentially can have more of it and in an ongoing way.
So how does social enterprise then deal with that issue of scale? What does social enterprise bring that allows scale to happen?
So I think there's a few different ways that you can use scale in a social enterprise. I always avoid it being seen as simply about every social enterprise getting really big, because not everyone wants to do that and not everyone should. If we look at some of the different social enterprise models, some of those genuinely work best because they're at a community level or a grassroots level, and you don't want to lose that. But there are legitimate things that come with scale, efficiencies, effectiveness that we want in the social enterprise sector, and that will help us use the money and resources and capacity we have better. And so if we can figure out ways to do that, that either are about our own organisation becoming bigger than we initially thought, or by finding clever ways to connect up with other social enterprises and get economies of scale and efficiency between 4 or 5 social enterprises, that together we can have some of those benefits of scale. They're the ways at TDI that we really try to embed scale into the work that the social enterprises are doing.
So both you and I have been in many a meeting where the comment is, well, I can't expect a financial return if you're doing good.
Yeah.
There's no way that you can have the kind of returns on investment that we think you need in the marketplace if you're doing good. How do we deal with that sense that sometimes we need to compromise the financials in order to get a good social outcome?
I genuinely think that if you go down that path and if you start to say that if an investor is wanting market rate returns, that's not acceptable, and in the social sector we shouldn't be engaging with those kinds of investors, I think that's really risky. And in the opposite way to the way that the social enterprise space thinks it is, people think that if they say we should be paying below market rate returns, that's so that they can have more social impact and not be putting that money off and paying an investor. The way that we always talk about these kinds of models with enterprises is to say that if you build a business model that can pay properly for the capital that it needs, so market rate returns, taking into account the kind of risk you're asking an investor to take in your business, then a few things can happen. If you find an investor, if you're lucky enough to find an investor who will take a below market rate return, pay them the market rate that you should be paying and let them grant back to you if that's what they choose to do, and put that back into the social side of your business. But what will happen is, by having that model that can pay properly for capital and building up a track record that demonstrates you could pay for the capital you took on, you actually, as an organisation, are in a much more powerful position. Because we all know, whether it's philanthropy or investment, people lose interest. At some point, that investor may not want to be having their money sitting with your organisation. If they take that investment out, you are able to go to the market and have someone else step in and provide that capital, knowing that your business model will support it. So I think it's actually, it's kind of counterintuitive building a model that can pay market rate returns really strengthens a social enterprise's ability to operate on both the mission and the financial side.
So we at TDI believe firmly that you can have and should have both. Great financials that can pay market rate returns on capital that it needs to scale the business, and a fantastic mission where you deliver real tangible outcomes for people and the planet.